Okay, so here we have this different types of options that we have in standard, sorted, and hash table. So in standard table we have index access, so we can access the index, and sorted table also we can access the index. And in hash table you cannot access the index. And key access you can do it in standard, sorted, hashed. And key values, the key, we will not have any primary key in the standard table, so it will be non-unique. So standard table, the key value is non-unique, and sorted table, unique or non-unique. Both of them will be possible, but you should mention whether it is unique or non-unique. You have to mention it in the sorted table. Hash table, we have only unique tables, only unique. So, and standard tables, the preferred access is mainly index, sorted table mainly key, and hash table key only. These are the various options that we have. So internal table, standard table. So having in the internal tables, the standard tables will have internal linear index. Records are accessed by index or keys. Okay, so line by line, and the response time for the key access is proportional to the number of entries. So if there are more number of entries, then the time taken to process it will be more, obviously. So the key is always non-unique. And then the internal table, sorted table. So in the sorted table always saves sorted by the key, have an internal index. Records can records can be accessed by table index or key, uses binary search or access. So this is basically the sorted tables will always use the binary search, and key can be unique or non-unique. The hash table has no linear index, only accessed using its key, and key must be unique. So uses hash algorithm for accessing records. Response time is always constant. Okay. So there is no matter how many number of records are there, the response time is always constant in the hash tables. So creating an internal table. So how do we create an internal table is like, if at all if it's a standard table, we'll go for IT underscore MET, like standard table of ST underscore MET. This is how we do it for the internal table. And then we have program with program on internal table without headline and with headline. See, with headline, without headline, with headline are the old ways of doing it. Actually, I'll tell you how we used to create a internal table in the past. So then I'll be explaining about this one. Okay. So internal tables, yeah, internal tables are dynamic variable data objects. Like all variables, declare them using the data statement. So we always do that. So with headline concept, I'll be telling you this is the old concept actually. So we should be doing it. So whenever an internal table becomes global, it becomes table type. So a global internal table is nothing but table type. So we'll declare a global internal table can be accessed in multiple programs, which we'll be discussing in the coming sessions. So defining internal table with local types. So we have this this is a say something like internal table type, internal table type structure. We'll be going ahead. Yeah. So here, this is how we are declaring it right now, right? So begin. This is a structure. Okay. This is a local structure type, and then we have the internal table type, either standard, sorted, or hashed. You should write standard, sorted, or hashed. If you write standard, there is no need of key. But if it is sorted, you have to mention the key, but it can be either unique or non-unique. And if it is hashed, it should be a unique key. So this is how we declare the internal table. So the possible definitions of internal table is something like this, so which you already discussed. So if you are referring to the global internal table, then you have to write just the local internal table type global internal table. That's it. You don't have to write standard table because table type itself means that it is also a table. So we'll discuss about that in the coming programs in more examples. So internal table type, standard table, or sorted table, and hash table of structure with key. Okay, so here we have this internal table. So operations are internal table. Operations are internal table. We will be discussing in the another session, but these are the major things that we have in a hash table, standard table, sorted table, and hash table. These are the three types of internal tables that we have. So clear, refresh, free is what we already used. We applied them directly on the program and we understood. Free, refresh, and clear. Sort, we also use a sort, and in sort we have discussed about ascending and descending. All this. So internal table with and without header line. So this one is a old way of declaring the internal table, which I'll be discussing later because that will be something which. So we have already discussed about the work area and internal table concept, right? So internal table and work area will have exactly the same number of columns, but the only thing is it will at any given point of time, columns in the sense how many fields are there in the internal table, same number of fields will be there in the work area as well. But if we enter the data in the work area and update that into the internal table, uh, then either you can get the data from the internal table to work area or you can update the data from work area to internal table. So this work area happens to be like a gateway. This is what we are something which we already discussed. Accessing single record. So these are the options that we have discussed now. Append, insert, read, change. Change in the sense we change it using the command called modify. So we have used append, insert, read table, modify, and delete. These are the operations that we have discussed. We have used loopet, and in loopet we can have condition. The condition I will tell you that there can be a condition in the loop. Delete, insert, append. We already used them. So aggregation. How do we aggregate? Aggregate means summing up. So we have summed up using the collect statement. We have used the collect statement to aggregate. So in standard tables, lines are always happening at the end of the internal table. Sorted table, the lines are inserted into the table according to the table key. And if the key is non-unique, the duplicate entry is inserted above the existing entry of the same key. And hash table, the lines are inserted according to the table key. Inserting lines. So for inserting a row, we have this. So instead of append, we can also use insert as well. But insert, if you don't mention the line index, okay, if you're not mentioning the index, it will by default add at the end of this end of the internal table. So in the standard and sorted and hashed, we just understood how to make use of. Like what is the syntax of standard table, sorted table, and hash table is what we need to understand. And as I discussed, we'll be using most of the times we'll be using the uh, standard table only. Sorted and hashed is something which we'll be discussing later. So if you want to determine the number of rows in an internal table, then we have to go with the syntax like describe table id underscore lines occurs j. Determining the number of rows in an internal table. So for determining the number of rows in an internal table, we'll go for SYT fill. So number of rows in an internal table is SYT fill. So SYT fill will give you the exact number of rows in an internal table. So SYT fill will define you the number of rows in an internal table. SYT length, the length of the row in a byte in bytes. So entire row. So for example, if you have three fields in an internal table, one field is of length 10, another 20, another 10. So the total it will show you T length as 40. So T OCCU, so current value of occurs clause, current value of occurs clause will be in SYT OCC. Creating top 10 lists using the append sorted by. So we can use this append the way the work area into internal table sorted by C. C is a component. Then we need to discuss about the control break statements. Control break statements is something which we need to discuss in the in an internal table how it works. So within the internal table, we can have at first, at last, at new, at end of, and we also have something called sum, on, change of, or end of. So these are the various options that we have in the control break processing. So these are called control break statements as well. At first, at new, uh, at last, at end of, at sum, and on, change of. So using the at first and at last statements. So let's go ahead and use at first and at new and at first statements. So let us go for the program that we already have done. So let's go with the same this program in which we will be using this at first add new editor. So in the output statement, you can say at first. At first, there is no need of condition for at first, right? This is DXC employee data. Then we have add new department, right? So here add new department started. Okay, so we have to go ahead with ended. So how many departments are there here? Like above SAP. So here, mm, actually this new department, right? So this new department is starting everywhere because we don't have the primary key. That's the reason it's getting triggered for every record. So this is DXC employee data is triggering only once. It's coming only once here because it will trigger at only at the beginning of the beginning of the loop. First time when it enters into the loop, it gets triggered. Okay, so this is DXC employee data is coming on the top, and this is end of display is coming. So remember, this at first, at last will be triggering only once. Okay, so there can be four possibilities in this, like at first, at last. There can be four possibilities here: at new, at first, at last, and at new and at end of. So we have used at first and at last now. We have used at first and at last. So when are we going to trigger this at first and at last? At first will be triggered only once in the loop. It will not be triggered every time. Even though if you have 100 records or 1 million records, this at first will get triggered only at the beginning of this loop, and at last will be at the end of the loop. That's it. These are the only two things that we have here. Okay, at first and at last. At first and at last will be triggered only once in the entire loop. But at new will be triggered every time there is a change in the department. So when I say at new department, every time there is a change in department, that it should get triggered actually. But last time when I'm doing it, every time it is getting triggered. So just see that. So what I have to do is I will be sorting it. Sort ID underscore EMP by department. Let's do that. Or since we already sorted based on the country, right? So we already sorted based on the country. At new, we'll go for at new country. Okay, for every record it is coming. Why is it coming is mainly because we don't have the primary key, right? So if we have the primary key, then this at new and at, at end of will trigger only once whenever there is a change in the country. So this at new should trigger at the change in the country. So what I'll do is when we are getting the data from database table, at that time we'll do it once again for that kind of a scenario, and this will come. So at new and at end of. For this, I will be doing another scenario when we are getting the data from this database tables. At end of CNTR ended. End of country. So this is something like this. So this at end of and at new are getting triggered for every record. So I'll take an example of something in which we have a primary key. In that it will be triggered only once. We'll see that. Okay, we'll see that in the future. So these are the four events that we can use in the control break events which we have in the program. So control break, these are called control break events. So what are the control break events that we have here? The control break events that we have here is first one is at first, next at new, at last, at end of. So these are the four different control break events. Okay, so we have used we have done a program in which we have used at first and at end of. So we'll be at last, not at end of, at last. At last will come at the last. So going forward, we'll be seeing some scenarios in which we have used at new and at end of. So these are the data dictionary objects that we have. So these data dictionary objects, we go in this data dictionary objects, we're going to define a database table, and we're going to discuss more about the data dictionary. But I'm going to do one simple database table creation, which we'll do it today. So database table creation, one database table creation we'll do it today. Okay, let's understand the real-time scenario of how the data gets stored in the real-time business. Let's say you are a company. Okay, so you are BMW. Okay, your company is BMW. Now you are working on SAP system, and suddenly there is a vendor who is a new vendor who has come up for providing you some tires, tire manufacturing company, and this manufacturing company happens to be MRF. So so MRF has applied for the vendorship of BMW so that they can provide the tires to BMW. So MRF comes up with all the global standards. They cater to all the global standards, and they give it to the product. They give the product to BMW. Now what happens here is, like, once they have done it, a new vendor has to be created. New vendor has to be created in SAP system by by BMW. So BMW is, let's say, we are assuming that BMW works on SAP system. So they have to create this vendor. So they have to log in. So to do that, we have a specific transaction code called MK01 for vendor creation. So we create a vendor. We also can create it from XK01. We'll see that later. So now we are creating it from MK01. Now when somebody enters some new vendor data in MK01, that gets loaded into the stored in DB table, DB table LFM. So now the data which we have in MK01, the data which we have in MK01, which we enter into the MK01, if you go to the database table LFM1, the data will be visible. So whatever data you stored it in the form of, for example, you have vendor number, vendor name. So all these things will enter into the screen, right? That screen records will be stored as a single row. They'll be stored as a single row in the backend in the database table. So the entire data will be stored as a single row in the backend. So that is how we are going to define it. We are going to create it. So for that, so that is how the real-time process works. But we are going to we are going to create a customized database table, and later point of time we can update the data into it also. So that is how the business works. The business how it works is when we create an MK01, when we create a vendor. Well, let me take another server. Let me take the server in which you are working right now. We are creating a vendor in the we are creating a vendor in the MK01 transaction. We already have this, I guess. MRF India, and search term is so tax, country is India. We can fill up all the other values also. I'm just going ahead with this. Customer, no. So MRF, So it's been created and the vendor number is 91234. So we need to go ahead into the SC11 transaction. Where we'll go ahead with NFA1 table. So once it was successfully entered into the LFM, I mean like into the vendor master. So we'll go for this data. We'll just check if the data is there 91234. This is the value for which we have entered the data. So if we double click on this, you'll get the list of all the values. So we have the vendor number, vendor name, search term, address number, the value, and then we have this company. Certain things are being entered by us, other things are updated by the system by its own. For example, they have SAP user. This is the user ID with which we have logged in, and this is a date on which it has been created. So these things are updated automatically by the system. So what we are going to do is we are going to create our own table now. So this LFA1 is a SAP standard table, but we are going to create our own table now. So that table is what we'll be doing it for either employee data or customer data, anything we can take. So initially I'll be taking about the employee data only. So let's go for employee data. We'll create a table in this server. So we'll go for ZDXC. Let's go EMP create employee data. We have this delivery class as application table, delivery maintenance other. So fields will just okay. So in the delivery and maintenance, why are we giving these two things? I will explain you in detail later. So as of now, we are just creating this. We are going for the delivery class and display and maintenance fields. We'll just give the fields as EMP and go. And first field should always be primary key. Since we don't have any data elements, we didn't create any data elements. We'll go for predefined. And in the predefined, we'll go for the data type as character, say length as some 10, enter. So we have the employee number. I mean, like if you have package, you can save it in the package. Not sure if that, okay. I don't have it in the package, so I'll just click on the employee name. So again, click on this predefine. Go for character 20, employee name. So we are creating one more field called department. So as of now, we are doing it without data element. So tomorrow we will be doing with data element and all. So department, and we have its character, length is 8, department, save it, technical settings, click on the technical settings, and data class, APPL0, size category 0. These are the things. See, these are extra things that I'm entering right now. These two things we have I've entered in the technical settings. There are a lot of things that we have to discuss. So remember that. So there are certain things I have done it blindly. So we're going to discuss the detail about that while we are doing it in the tomorrow session. So we have A, this delivery class A, delivery and maintenance allowed. Then in the fields we are actually giving the field names. The data type and length is what we are giving, short description. So in the tomorrow's session, tomorrow's project we'll be doing. We'll also be creating a domain and data element as well, which we'll do it later. So technical settings we have done it. ABPL000 is what we wanted. Why we have done it, I'll explain you about that. So then we have to just activate this table. So it's active now. So what we can do is we can go to table contents, display. We will not have any data now. If you go for utilities, table contents and display, no data will be available because we have not created any data. So it will be empty. The table will be empty. So later we'll be entering the data and we'll check the data in the backend. So if you see number of entries will be 0. So execute. We don't have any data. So we'll go ahead with the utilities, table contents, create entries. In this we have 100. Employee name is Meghna. Department SAP. Save it. Reset. Employee name is Kavya. Sorry, employee number is 1001. Employee name is Kavya, and department is again SAP. Save it. So we just loaded two records: utilities, table contents, display. So when you go for display and execute again, so you will have these two records, Meghna and Kavya. So these are the two records that we have now. So we can create a few more records. So this happens to be a very simple example in which we have to discuss about all these functionalities that we have in a table. All these functionalities have discussed for a table, and after discussing all these things, we'll be going ahead with the next coming sessions. Okay. So this is about a simple project on database table creation. And which transaction did we do that? We did it in the SC11 transaction. SC11. S11, we created a program, we created a table, and then we clicked on this create button, and then we entered this description. We have entered this description, EMP data. Then we went into the delivery class. In the delivery class, we gave it as D, A, application table, and then we have display and maintenance error. Why are we giving these options? I'll be explaining you. Okay. So we'll go for this employee number. We have selected first field as employee number. Oh, we don't have the data element, right? As of now, we don't have data. So we click on the predefined one and enter this data. So we have to go for employee number. Then we'll go for employee name, and we went for department. We just created three fields. So employee name, save. technical settings. In the technical settings, we will go for ABPL 0 and size category 0. We're going to size category and 0 and saved it and back. So we have a lot of things in the technical settings, like we'll have delivery class, size category, buffering types, and log data. So all these things we'll be discussing one by one in the tomorrow session. It will take some time. So this is about we are creating this database table. So we'll be discussing data types and all these things we'll be doing it. It's taking time.